Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a totally unprecedented collision. We're going to examine this really fascinating moment where the strict, newly implemented regulations of modern sports crashed head-on into the boundaries of press freedom. We'll be looking objectively at the facts, the rules, and the heavy fallout of a situation that left a veteran broadcaster completely shut out of the biggest sporting event on the planet.
So picture this, you're tuned into the live coverage of the 2026 World Cup, and suddenly, the voice coming through your speakers erupts with this: "They killed football. FIFA, you killed football." Those explosive words came straight from veteran Paraguayan broadcaster Jorge Chipi Vera. It was just this raw, completely unfiltered, on-air outburst that absolutely stunned listeners, and it immediately set a massive corporate machine into motion.
And that brings us directly to the core question we're unpacking today. How did one live broadcast end a World Cup career? Like, how did a few sentences from a seasoned commentator trigger such a massive, tournament-altering consequence? Well, to understand how a man lost his credentials for the entire tournament, we really have to rewind and look at the exact moment on the pitch that sparked this whole incredible chain of events.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the controversial red card and Almirón's expulsion.
Okay, so here is the micro-level inciting incident that sparked the utter chaos. It was June 19th, 2026, out in Santa Clara, California. Paraguay was playing Turkey in a super tense Group D clash. Let's walk through this timeline together. We're in first half stoppage time, right? Paraguay's star playmaker Miguel Almirón gets into a bit of an exchange with Turkish defender Mert Müldür. At first, it just looks like standard gamesmanship, but then Almirón covers his mouth while speaking. Immediately, the referee flags the gesture. Following a really rapid VAR review, Salvadoran referee Iván Barton issues a straight red card. And just like that, with that piece of red cardboard, Miguel Almirón became the very first player in World Cup history to be sent off simply for the act of covering his mouth.
Now, you might be wondering, why on earth was a card pulled for that? Well, the crucial point here comes down to the Vinicius Rule. This is a highly specific law designed by football authorities to stop players from hiding racist or discriminatory abuse. The underlying logic is that if you cover your mouth, you're presumed to be hiding something malicious. Referee Iván Barton applied this brand new standard to the exact letter of the law. He saw the mouth covered, and boom, he issued the red card, totally changing the dynamic of the match.
Which brings us to Section 2, the explosive broadcast, featuring Chipi Vera's outburst.
So while all the players on the pitch are reacting, up in the commentary booth, Jorge Chipi Vera is watching his national team suddenly get reduced to 10 men. And well, he didn't just criticize the call. He rapidly escalated his outrage, taking aim at three major figures in world football. First, he targeted referee Iván Barton, explicitly calling him a thief. Then, his scope widened all the way to the very top of the sport, targeting FIFA President Gianni Infantino, shouting, "You should be ashamed." And finally, he went after the head of South American football, CONMEBOL President Alejandro Domínguez, telling him to grow a pair before screaming, "You fucking thieves," live on the airwaves. I mean, it was an astonishing escalation, from a single refereeing decision to a systemic condemnation of football's leadership.
But to be fair here, it's important to note that Vera wasn't just blindly hurling insults. He was forcefully challenging the logical application of the Vinicius Rule in this specific context. He yelled out, "What kind of racism could Miguel Almirón possibly use against the Turkish player? Show me some common sense." So Vera was essentially arguing that a rule meant to protect the game's integrity was being applied without any contextual logic, effectively ruining the match for a gesture he believed had zero malicious intent.
Let's look at the fallout in Section 3, FIFA's swift punishment and the ban.
Zooming out to the macro response, the governing body of world football heard that broadcast, and they did not hesitate for a second. Their response was delivered with cold, bureaucratic swiftness. Within days, FIFA revoked Jorge Vera's credentials for the remainder of the 2026 World Cup. They cited his repeated personal attacks and derogatory comments. And this wasn't just a slap on the wrist. This was a comprehensive, absolute ban. He was instantly barred from all stadiums and official areas. His professional role in the biggest sporting event on earth was terminated immediately.
To really understand FIFA's mindset here, we need a bit of context. 388,000. That is a massive number. It's actually the number of harmful social media posts FIFA had already taken down since the tournament began. It perfectly illustrates FIFA's current zero-tolerance policy. They are actively fighting this massive war against abusive language online. So, from FIFA's perspective, if they're policing hundreds of thousands of fans on social media, they simply cannot allow a credentialed broadcaster to hurl abusive language at their officials and executives from the commentary booth.
Moving on to Section 4, Apologies and Pushback and the ensuing network defiance.
Now, the story absolutely didn't end with the ban. This fascinating narrative friction immediately emerged. Facing the end of his World Cup journey, Jorge Vera actually posted a video apology, completely falling on his sword. He admitted he, quote, exceeded the limits, and acknowledged he had failed the fundamental duty of a communicator to maintain respect. But simultaneously, his employer, ABC Cardinal, stood its ground. While Vera was apologizing, the network released a statement calling FIFA's punishment extreme and manifestly disproportionate. The network laid out this very specific objective defense. They pointed out, look, this was a first-time offense for a respected veteran professional. They highlighted that the mistake was immediately acknowledged and rectified with a formal apology. Their core argument was basically that a man's entire professional career shouldn't be cast aside over a single, isolated incident of passionate frustration. They were openly calling for proportionality and dialogue with FIFA rather than this career-ending silence.
This leaves us right into Section 5, Censorship versus Protection and the wider fallout.
We're now zooming all the way out from a single football match to a massive macro-level debate. The fallout moved far beyond sports, pulling in labor unions and press freedom advocates. The Paraguayan Journalists Union actually called FIFA's decision shameful censorship and warned it sets a serious precedent against freedom of expression and the right to work. The Circle of Sports Journalists also requested a formal review. You see, their deep fear is that the strict Vinicius Rule on the pitch is being matched by an iron-fisted silence rule in the press box, where any heavy criticism of authority could literally cost a journalist their livelihood.
And that leaves us with a profound, open question to conclude our explainer today. We've seen the rule, the outburst, the ban, and the immense blowback. But where should the line actually be drawn? Was banning Jorge Vera a necessary act of justice to protect match officials and executives from toxic abuse? Or was it the silencing of dissent and fair, albeit super passionate criticism under the guise of enforcing media conduct? What's absolutely undeniable is that the very first application of the Vinicius Rule didn't just remove a player from the field, it removed a career from the airwaves. So think about where you stand on that line. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and stay curious.